key PJM capabilities and see how these capabilities can be used to support specific projects like manufacturing, service, and other projects. Before we jump into the key capabilities, let's go through a quick overview of PJM projects in Sage X3. First, I'll be using this landing page here to navigate throughout the demonstration. I can access my projects. I can enter time against my projects. I can access the new revenue recognition capabilities. I can also access any related business transactions associated with my projects, such as purchasing transactions and even sales transactions. And this query will even show me any tasks that I've been assigned to on various projects. Let's take a look at a project. So here on the left, I have an option to select my CRM projects. This allows me to actually convert any CRM projects that I've won into PJM projects. I can specify the customer associated with the project for customer projects. I've also got an internal option here that allows me to track internal projects like capital expenditure projects. I can see my overall progress against a project here in this field. Estimated revenue at completion, descriptive details, my financial cost here in this section, and then the revenue along with the cost to show a margin here, both a dollar margin and a percent margin. Now every budget can have, or every project can have a budget. That's defined through cost structure here. So I can define a multi-level budget for any project. I can actually create my budget lines from tasks that I've defined. That's done through this option here. Through task planning, I can define start dates and end dates for my various activities on the project. I can assign resources. I can plan various material that I either need to allocate to projects or to purchase. And that's done through task planning here. I can view a project overview through this option. I've got additional financial overview details available here. You can view a timeline for the project on this screen. I can choose to view product requirements, operations activities, and see a timeline view in this graphical format that we see here. I can create snapshots for my projects. The snapshots can be used to support revenue recognition, and they can also be used to support billings in the system. The snapshots create a permanent record of the project as of specific points in time, and it serves as historical data. I can access CRM activities like tasks and calls, and I can even create sales documents automatically through this option, the sales document creation option. I can inquire on time that's been logged against the project. And lastly, I can access any of my business transactions associated with the project, such as my sales transactions or purchasing transactions like purchase orders, receipts, or invoices through this option. So this actually concludes the quick overview of PJM. Now let's take a look at our first key capability. Let's take a look at progress billing and milestone billing in PJM. These capabilities can be used for any project where you're billing a customer and where you want to bill based on progress made against the project or based on milestones. Manufacturing projects, services projects, construction projects, and many other types of projects are good fits. And this is typically used in conjunction with the revenue recognition capabilities in PJM. So let's take a look at a project. Now this particular project, I'm actually building a custom grocery trailer. I've got my customer that I'm going to bill based on progress. Got the sales rep, I've got a category for the project, overall progress, estimated revenue for the project, estimated expenses, overall margin in terms of dollars and percentages are shown here. And I've got a full budget too, by the way, on this project. It's available under cost structure. So I've got a budget line for specification, development work, and some other activities. Now, for any line of a budget, or even an activity, a task against the project, you can configure those to be billed based on progress. So in this case here, I've configured this development line to be billed based on progress. And so far, we've made 27.78% progress against this budget line. Let's go in and take a look at the billing center here and see what it looks like from a billing standpoint. So in this case here, from a progress billing standpoint, we're set to issue an invoice for the month of May on June 6th, and it shows my current progress of 27.78%, which will continue to be updated as I make more progress against this project. And at the end of the month, once all the project activity has been posted, I can validate this line, and then X3 will issue an invoice using the scheduled invoices capabilities within X3 for that progress. Any previous invoices that have been issued based on progress will show up down here in this section. You'll notice I issued an invoice back on May 6th. This was for activity for the period of April. So this was the first progress billing invoice that we issued on this project. That's a quick overview of progress billing in X3. Now let's take a look at an invoice that's set up for milestone billing. So this invoice here looks like we're building a Blade server solution. It has budget data just like our other project did. And we can view the different milestones that we're going to use from a billing standpoint for milestone billing here under the billing center as well. So here, if we scroll down a little, we can see we've got a milestone here where we're going to issue basically another milestone-based invoice for 30% of the project. I've got another milestone invoice we're going to issue an invoice for 40% of the project, and the remaining 10% when this milestone is achieved. Once the milestone is completed, you can check this box off here. You can do it within the budget or within the task section of PJM, and that's going to be the trigger point to issue a new invoice for that milestone. It designates that milestone has been completed, and you can then issue an invoice for the milestone. Any previous milestones that have been achieved would be shown here, so you can see we've got a milestone that's already been achieved where we've already issued an invoice for that. All those details are stored on the sales order that's tied to the project. We can look at that here. If we go into lines, we've got our invoicing for this project, under the scheduled invoice details. And we can see the different milestones. So I've got an initial milestone. When it's completed, we'll invoice 20% of the project. That's actually been invoiced already. And then I've got my future invoices based on different milestones that will be invoiced as soon as those milestones are completed. Each line can be tied in this milestone column, can be tied to a different line of the budget or a different line of the schedule. And that becomes the trigger point for the issuance of the milestone invoice. So that's milestone invoicing in PJM. So this actually concludes the overview of progress billing and milestone billing in PJM. Let's take a look at capital expenditure tracking in PJM. Expenditures can be part of CapEx projects, and this is the most common use case that I see. Capital expenditures can also apply to new product development type projects where capitalizable tools or new equipment is required to support the new product development. This capability could actually be used with any project where you're making capital expenditure purchases for the project. Now let's take a look at a CapEx project for a department or cost center within a business. So here I've got a project for the IT department for 2020. I don't have a customer associated with this. This is an internal only project, and it's noted as internal through this checkbox here. I've got a category of CapEx, which helps me segregate these types of projects from other projects that I may be tracking in PJM. My fiscal year here is referenced in the start to end date for the capital expenditures period. In this case here is 2020. Person responsible would typically represent the cost center manager or the department manager for this particular budget. Further descriptive details can be noted here. No revenue for the project. This is an expenses only type project. Project has been launched. Looks like I plan to spend $13,500 in capital expenditures, and so far I've actually made $12,300 worth of purchases. So I've got good visibility into how I'm tracking against my budget in this section of the project. And if I scroll down a little further, you'll notice I've referenced the IT department here under Cost Center. So all these actual details, all the spend will be tied back to the Cost Center for this particular CapEx budget. Budget details are stored here under Cost Structure, so I can have as many different lines and levels as I need to support my budget for the CapEx type project. Keep my budget amounts in, and it will track, actual spend made against the different budget lines that you've set up. Any purchases that I've made that I've tied back to the project can be accessed here on the right list under the purchasing section. If I go into invoices, I can see a list of all different invoices that have been tied back to this project. So these are different purchases that I've made for this CapEx budget. Through the action card here, I can access the invoice. I can go back and look at the purchase order. I can go to the receipt or access full journal traceability. And by accessing full journal traceability, I have access to go in and jump to the fixed asset here in Sage X3 Fixed Assets. So here I've got a copy of the server that I purchased in Fixed Assets. Other details, I got the amount of the purchase, the family of the asset, all the depreciation details are stored here in Fixed Assets. Now this asset's already in service, but we do support construction in progress type assets in Fixed Assets. That allows us, let's say we're doing a new construction build out. We want to take all of our assets and put them into service as of a very specific date using a construction in progress type process. We support that with X3 Fixed Assets. So that's a capability that we can handle as well. So this actually concludes the quick overview of capital expenditure tracking in PJM. You can use it by itself to help better manage your capital projects. Maybe you want to use this in conjunction with other projects that you'd like to track within PJM. Let's take a look at time tracking in PJM. Common projects that require the capture of time include services-based projects, manufacturing projects, construction projects, capital expenditure, and others. I'm going to assume the role of a worker on some of our projects. Here you can see any task to which I've been assigned on various projects. Let's take a look. I can see a description of the task, a start date and end date for the work, total planned load, what's been completed so far, task progress shown as a percentage, and some other key metrics. I'll also use this landing page to enter my time on any of the projects that I'm working. This is the new weekly timesheet function that Ms. Shia mentioned. This is built to simplify time entry for your employees. I'm able to enter time for the entire week. Each column here represents a different day of the week. And also, by default, any of the projects that I'm working on are preloaded into this grid. I can change the date here at the top to maybe look at time for a previous period, to adjust that time, check the status of that time. I could also change the unit from hour to, say, minutes if I wanted to enter time in minutes instead of hours. Each time entry is color-coded using different color coding. Yellow represents time that I've entered but have not yet validated. Green represents time that I've entered and have validated and put it into a bucket where it's awaiting approval by my manager. And then the blue bucket actually represents time that not only I validated, but my manager has also approved. Let's go and enter some time in. I'm ready to enter my time for Thursday, so I'm going to go ahead and enter some time on these two projects. At this point, I could simply save the time off that I've entered, or I can enter some additional details. Through this option here, I can enter, if I want to just enter comments for the work that I completed, I could do that. Or if I want to go into time entry detail and enter additional information, like maybe I was working overtime or different details related to the time, I can do that through this option. Let's just go in, we'll simply enter in a description of the work that I did. I did build work, and this was approved and reviewed Susan. She reviewed my work. Okay. We'll go ahead and click OK. At this point, if I want to go ahead and validate the time to put it into a bucket for my manager's approval, I could validate the entire row here, or just validate the time that I just entered. So let's just go ahead and validate that. You'll notice that the time is changing to green to represent that it's been validated. It is now awaiting my manager's approval. This blue box here, this solid blue box, represents time that I've split into different categories. So to see those details, I can use this option here to view the time entry split. And I can see here that I've actually entered time into a separate category, a travel category, for these 2 hours here. So for this project, for this day, I've entered a total of 7 hours, 5 hours of regular labor, and 2 hours of travel. So you can split your time into different categories within a single day for a single project, like I've done here. Let's go ahead and save this time off. I'd also like to enter in, I plan to be out of the office on Friday. So you do have the ability to select projects where maybe you've not yet been assigned to a project, but you know you're authorized to work on it. So you can pick those projects using that option, the plus option. And I can also do things like select overhead categories, such as paid time off. This is where I can actually enter time in kind of into an overhead category and possibly allocate these costs out across multiple projects at a later date using some of the allocation capabilities in Sage X3. Let's go ahead and enter my paid time off. I've got an overhead project set up, and one of the overhead categories is paid time off. So we'll go ahead and pick that. We'll enter my overhead time in for Friday, where I plan to be out of the office, and we'll save that off. Now that all my time's been entered, my manager will have their own role-based landing page like we have here, where they'll be able to come in and approve my time. And then the finance and accounting department can go through their different posting processes, which is going to create the corresponding journal entries for each project. Let's review the tracking of trade promotions in PJM. This is a great option if you're already planning to use PJM to track other projects, like a manufacturing project. Use PJM to store the details related to these trade promotions and track all the financial information. Let's review how a project could be set up to support this need. A couple projects set up for the demo today. Let's pick this one. This is a 5% rebate that we're offering any customers in the state of Texas. You'll notice we haven't assigned any specific customer because the rebate program is applicable for any customers in the state of Texas. I've assigned a unique category which will allow me to report on these types of projects separate from any other projects that I'm tracking within PJM. Start date, end date for the particular program, who's responsible for it. I can enter in this field the estimated revenue of completion, the amount of revenue I expect to drive with this trade promotion. So in this case here, I expect to drive $1 million in sales with the trade promotion. Description and comments for the program. And we can see how we're tracking now from a revenue standpoint against this program. So far, I've had $80,000 of sales come in that I've tied to this program. We're going to offer $15,000 in rebates that the customer can take as a deduction for a net total revenue of $65,000. I can view these invoices through this option. I've got one invoice and one credit memo, which represents the accrual for the deduction that the customer can take. So I've got my $80,000 sale and the $15,000 deduction accrual that I've done for the trade promotion, which is the net $65,000 revenue that we saw. That's a quick overview of using PJM to track trade promotions, track your details in PJM, provide better financial visibility for these promotions as well. Let's review the out-of-the-box SEI PJM insights. SEI is delivered with this dashboard that includes a number of key PJM insights. This is a great complement to PJM and will be beneficial for any type of project. The dashboard includes some KPIs across the top and some key charts and reports as well. So let's go ahead and put this dashboard onto a separate tab to get a little better look at it. So across the top, I've got a great selection of filters to be able to filter down maybe to a specific project or specific projects. I can look at specific budget lines or task lines. I can look at projects for maybe a specific customer. I can view projects by site or even by sales rep. So I've got some budgeted numbers over here, these KPIs in the upper left-hand corner. On the right, I can look at my sales compared to the different costs for an overall margin on the projects that I've selected. This chart here in the center of the screen shows me labor progress against the projects that I've selected. This budget view over here looks at my total budget, and then it gives me a breakdown of actual expenses, what's been committed, and then what is still left to commit from a budget standpoint on expenses. This view here actually looks at task planning and operations to give me a view of planned tasks as well as actual load against those. This is a revenue focused chart here on the right hand side of the screen. This heat map down here is probably my favorite chart on the screen. What this shows is cost broken out by cost type, grouped up by cost group. So as an example, here in the center of the screen, I've got time, so overall time, broken out by the different cost types of time. So I can see time for the workers here, time for the managers, time for machines, time for technicians, and the size of the box will actually represent the amount of the cost. So the larger the box, the larger the cost. This is a great view to get views of the different costs on your projects and the relative size of those costs for any project. We want to filter down on a specific project. We can come in here and look at maybe that blade server project that we were working with earlier. Don't see it on this screen. Here it is, blade server milestone billing. Go ahead and look at the information just for a specific project. So here I can see the budget information, overall budget, what's left to commit. We're pretty early on in the life cycle of this project. I can look at my operations and task planning information, how we're tracking against that, and then the cost on this project as well. So a little simpler view here. We have a small amount of material on this project, on this blade server project, and or just one category, I should say. It's not very small because it's the largest box, as well as some labor cost here. I've got time of a manager and time of a technician. So that actually concludes the SEI PJM capabilities, beneficial for any PJM project. And if you don't have access to these insights in your SEI instance, or if you'd like to learn more about PJM, reach out to your partner. You can upgrade to the latest version of SEI to add these capabilities in if you already have SEI and you don't happen to have these insights. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Project management is not just about managing the financial aspect of a project. Sage is investing in ability to manage multiple resources and resource types across, including human resources, machinery, tooling, and third-party subcontractors. Recent enhancements to the project management module have seen the introduction of new billing methods, delivering more flexibility to customers to invoice products and services. The billing center, which provides better visibility about what can be invoiced to customer and enable improved billing frequency and drive cash flow. Future innovation is planned to extend and expand capabilities in the following areas: supporting multiple billing models, advanced revenue recognition, resource planning and utilization management, collect and consolidate all project activities in a single view. This was an insight of key capabilities of Sage X3 project management. Thank you for attending.
Thanks for attending the session today. Hopefully you've been able to identify some new types of projects that can be managed with PJM, or more about the capabilities you can leverage to track your projects more efficiently and give you better insight into the financial performance of these projects. Thank you.